Hello YouTube, what's new? So, this video, it's been a while since I have last made a video. I apologize for that. But let's get into it. What's new? Well, Black Lives Matters, that's new. Well, no it's not. Black lives have always mattered. But on that note, I am leaving links in the description to petitions you can sign, among other things, to stay informed. So you can find that kind of stuff there. But yeah, what else is new? I got a desk because I'm still studying for the bar exam, which I'm taking in September, not July. What else? I'm stupid, you know, it's that bar exam feeling, right? That's coming in a different video, not this one. All right, let's get on with the video. So, for those of you who have been following me from the beginning or have seen any of my videos, you know I always start with hello YouTube, what's new? This video will help you understand, hopefully, it will help you figure out where that phrase in general comes from. I'm going to talk about Newsies, and I'm also going to make the entire theater community hate me at the same time, but it's fine. It's completely fine. I'm fine with that, I think. All right, if you didn't, so yeah, because my opinion on this is going to be the most controversial. I've done two other videos. I've done one where I hated on Cats in 2019, and I've done one where I said that both versions of Billy Elliot, the movie and the musical, are absolutely amazing. I do prefer the musical, but I would still watch the movie if it ever came on. If, like, honestly, I should be just buying it instead of renting it over and over. So that tells you a little bit about where my bias comes from. And there is a pattern in that I typically prefer the stage show. That's gonna change today. What else is gonna change is another well, this pattern doesn't change either, because this pattern is solidified in the fact that I tend to prefer the medium of the show I watch, the first thing I watch of the version. What are words, guys? I tend to prefer the first version of something I watch. So like with Billy Elliot, I prefer the musical, I watch the musical first. With Cats, I prefer the stage version, I watch the stage version first. Newsies is the same thing. I do prefer the movie. I watch the movie first. But don't let that like cloud your judgment, because I feel like my reasons are pretty valid, just like my reasons for the other two for liking and disliking I felt like were pretty valid. So don't turn the video off, hear me out, because I got a lot to say. So let's start with why I like Newsies and why I'm deciding to do this video. So this is a birthday gift I got a long time ago. I don't even know if you can see the whole thing, but I got this when I turned 13. That tells you when I saw this movie. And because I got a movie poster, I'm gonna put it down now. I got a movie poster for my 13th birthday of my favorite movie at the time. It's still one of my favorite movies. I love Newsies. Absolutely love it. Along with the movie poster, I got a signed movie script from Newsies. I made my mom go to California with me and my sister so I could see the backlot where Newsies was filmed. I was obsessed. I have been a fan of this movie for so long that way back when the internet was still kind of new, I was like looking at fan sites, getting every screenshot I could of this movie because I loved it so much. Like, the whole reason I liked this movie is gonna blow your mind, because I was in 6th grade in Latin class because my school taught Latin, and we were learning, we had like phrases of the week or of the month, something like that. And the phrase that we were learning was carpe diem, seize the day. And if you know Newsies, there's a song called Seize the Day. And so my teacher, to help us understand what seize the day meant, played us this song. She only played us the song. We got to see a little bit of what happens beforehand, and then she ended it when the song ended. And I'm sitting here in class going, how do they get to this point? Why do they need this rallying point? And so I went and I didn't buy the movie then, but I went and rented the movie, because back then Blockbuster was a thing, because that's how old I am. I rented it for a week because that's all I was allowed from Blockbuster, and I watched it every single day. And I cried when I had to return it because I didn't want to return it. So, I love this musical. It has a very cherished place in my heart. So everything I say about both the Broadway version and the movie version comes from a place of love, because I care so much about the story and I want the best for it. So just remember that. Don't let my opinions make you hate me, basically. So I'm gonna say this. I did put off watching the musical for a long time. The first, because my family couldn't afford it. If you watched my Billy Elliot video, the story is very similar. Newsies came around the same time. We couldn't afford tickets to New York. We couldn't afford tickets to go see the show. So I put off watching it, and then the Pro Shot version came out, and I still put off watching it because of the fans. So really, it's your fault that I don't like the musical as much as I could. Not really, but the fans, the way they talked about the 1992 movie, it put me off of wanting to enjoy the show, because y'all are mean. Y'all are mean to the cast of the original movie. Y'all are mean about the original movie in general. I've never seen such disrespect for the original medium of a show than I have for Newsies. Like, come on. Even the Les Mis people like the Brick, and the Brick is called the Brick. Like, come on. The disrespect that the movie gets is insane from the fans of the musical, and I'm gonna differentiate movie and musical. Musical means Broadway, movie means 1992. But the disrespect that the fans of the musical give the movie and the fans of the movie is just insane, and it made me not want to watch the musical. I did, and I have a lot of thoughts. So before I get really into my critiques and stuff, I want to give a little bit of background on why I think that Billy Elliot as a musical and a movie works really well, and why their marriage as both of them work very well, and why this doesn't. And that's because when a story is changed so much for an adaptation, it becomes bad. Look at Percy Jackson. They're having to redo the adaptation because it was so bad. Granted, Luke Castellan, Jake Abel, he carried those movies, but Cats 2019 is a perfect example of a movie that flopped because it didn't hold true to what its original medium was. Billy Elliot, because it is essentially the exact same story with just music and emphasizing certain points, means that the stories aren't completely different. So if you're watching one and then watching another, you're not watching a completely different thing, and you know what to expect. Newsies is the same way. So let's get into a little brief history of the movie before I go into like my talking points of why I prefer the movie over the musical, because I'm gonna come out and say I do prefer the movie over the musical. So let's start at the very beginning. Who created this movie? Kenny Ortega directed and choreographed Newsies, the movie version. And yes, you heard that correctly. Kenny Ortega, of Dirty Dancing fame, of High School Musical fame, of Hocus Pocus fame, of the Disney Descendants franchise fame. That Kenny Ortega directed Newsies and choreographed Newsies. And his vision for this movie was not to have it look was not to have the boys look professional, which is one of the downsides of having such talented actors portrayed on stage. Because I'm not going to knock the actors from the stage production, they are so talented, but the movie holds a special place because it looks like these boys could come from the streets, and that was the goal and the purpose of picking those certain actors. The movie wasn't originally supposed to be a musical, so a lot of people are like, well, why was Christian Bale cast? Well, he was cast before it was a musical, and it was changed into a musical when he already had the role, so he had to sing for this. So yeah, that's a little history. So now let's go into my breakdown, and I have 4 parts to this breakdown. The first is the tone. The second is the songs, which is a really short thing. Then we have the talent, which I will explain a little bit more in depth when I get there. And the last is Katherine Pulitzer, because I have a lot of issues with her, which don't turn off my video. Please listen to my reasons, because it's not just me hating a female character because she's in love with Jack Kelly. That is not the reason. Listen to the end. I promise I have a reason for it. So let's start with the tone. The tone of the movie is very grim and dark. There is not a lot of hope for these boys, and the moments of hope that they get often get crushed, and it is glorious storytelling. In the musical, it's a lighter tone in general. Yes, there are fights, but they're not as heavily emphasized. I mean, there's like 3 fights in the movie. There's 1, I think, in the musical. It's been a while since I've seen it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's only 1, and only 1 person really gets hurt besides Crutchy, which is Jack. And then Jack misses out on like the number that is supposed to bring all the boys together, which is King of New York. So like, Jack becomes a kind of a crybaby in the movie, in the musical, which is really sad because that's not his character at all. A lot of the tone of the Brooklyn boys is lost in the musical. Yes, they have their little rallying song, but like, you can't take them seriously, in my opinion. Like, there's no way to take those boys seriously. In the movie, you know they're a threat. You know they're a threat from the moment they are first mentioned, because everybody gets quiet, no one wants to go to Brooklyn, and then you actually see them go to Brooklyn. You don't see that. There is so much telling in this musical instead of showing, that the musical itself suffers. Like, I know it's an extra scene, but there's rafters in this musical. You can show the entire Brooklyn thing on the rafters saying it's the Brooklyn Bridge and have them actually meet Spot Conlon, because we don't meet him until like the second half of the musical, which is a horrible thing to do, because why? He has all this build-up, but you have nothing to base that build-up off of because you never see him, and it's poor storytelling. The rally scene has no real camaraderie. Like, the tone of the rally scene goes from very happy and has a lot of camaraderie among these Newsies to very serious very quick in the movie. In the musical, we get Meta Song, which is great. I'm not gonna make any fun of that. It's a good song, but you get no sense that these Newsies actually care for each other, even though you know who all the Newsies are, because all they do is separate out the cast and be like, whatever Newsie here, Nana Newsie here, whatever. And it just doesn't seem like a rally. It doesn't seem full, because you know who they are. You can see them in every other number. Like with Les Mis, their cast, I want to say this, Les Mis does have a slightly bigger cast. However, I can feel like the whole of France is marching on me in Les Mis, and I do not feel like every single boy in New York is in the Newsie rally scene, because it feels so sparse, because they have them spread out all over the huge set and stage, and it doesn't feel like they're compacted into this theater. It doesn't give you a sense that there's a lot of people there. So yeah. The tone of the rally is just all wrong to me, in my opinion. Oh, and if you're wondering why I'm looking over to my side, that's where my notes are, because I have to have notes for these videos. I think a lot of the humor in the musical is just, it falls flat and it's not delivered well. Like the oyster scene, I have never liked that line. I don't like how stupid it makes racetrack seem, but I've never liked the line because I think it's poor comedy. Most of the comedy is very poorly done and poorly acted. No offense to the actors. A lot of the tone for the movie actually comes through what you see. And because you don't see any of that in the musical, you lose a lot of the tone. Like, we only see the refuge, inside the refuge, once. And that was added for the live version, because Crutchy has a song, which I thought was kind of unnecessary. But in the movie, you actually get to see how serious the refuge is, because you get scenes of Crutchy inside the refuge. You get the boys trying to rescue Crutchy from the refuge. Like, think about how impactful that is, to have his friends immediately try to break him out of jail. It's crazy. And it also makes sense with later when they try to break Jack out of jail. Like, it's a marriage of how much these boys are there for each other that you don't get in the musical that you do in the movie. And it changes the tone, and it makes it seem less serious, and that the stakes aren't as serious as they are. All right, moving on to songs. I love Alan Menken. He's a great songwriter. He's a great lyricist. Sorry, my watch is going off. He's a great songwriter, a great lyricist. I don't like the songs he added into this. I don't think the opening song with Crutchy and Jack added anything to the story. Yes, it gave you a bit of what their relationship was like, but if you gave them the dialogue that they initially had from the movie, you wouldn't need a song. You wouldn't need this extra awkward song at the beginning to emphasize that they have a friendship. It should just come through their acting. It shouldn't have to be told to the audience. I don't think Crutchy's song in the refuge did anything, honestly. It just kind of seemed like filler. Especially since, like, his story in the refuge is so downplayed in the movie. He actually has a pretty big part with the refuge. He does a lot for Jack in the refuge, and a lot of who he is at his core comes through in his scenes with the boys and stuff in the refuge. And it's kind of sad that we don't get that. I don't like Katherine's song. I will talk about that later, because I have a whole section on her. I've already talked about how I don't like the song at the beginning. I don't like the changes to the songs. I get that you need a powerhouse number with Santa Fe. I get that. It's Broadway. You have to have that kind of song. I think it's kind of sad that you have to have that kind of song for it to be a good musical, because I think the original Santa Fe is actually really powerful with the fact that it ends very somber. But that's just me. There's a change in, what's the song? I don't remember the name of it, but it's like, this is the story you wanted to write, well tonight it's that song. There's a change in that I don't like, and it changes to an upbeat, it changes key, and it changes more upbeat to a different lyric. And I've never really understood that, because the song is supposed to be like their battle cry, and it's supposed to be a war cry, and you don't get that. You also don't get them like interacting with people who aren't Newsies, because that's the time where they interact with people who aren't Newsies, and why the final scene is so important. It's because every working person who is a kid in New York comes together in the final scene, and you don't get that because you don't ever see them interact with anybody who's not Newsies, so it lessens the stakes. Anyways, moving on. The talent. This is where the fans really make me mad about. The fans of the musical make me mad, because they only consider talent to be the guys in the musical. And yes, they're great dancers, they're great actors, they're great singers. I will give you that. But so were the actors in the movie. And this is what really grinds my gears. This and Katherine Pulitzer. So I'm going to tell you a bit about the credentials of some of the people in the movie, and hopefully that'll change your opinion on the actors in the movie, and why the movie actors and dancers aren't as bad as you think, and why it's so important that they looked unpolished. So first, Max Casella, Racetrack from the movie. He's the reason tap dancing in King of New York exists, because he liked to tap dance. You have him to thank for that. He also went on to be the original Timon in Lion King on Broadway and got nominated for a Tony. So people who say he's talentless can just see themselves out the door. Dominic Lucero, He was a dancer in the movie. If you've seen the movie, he does a spin on the fan at the end of King of New York. He was said to by Kenny Ortega and by Peggy Adams, her name is Peggy, by all the people who were the adults on set, he was said to be the best dancer that they ever saw. He actually, before he passed, he actually went on and did a Michael Jackson music video, I believe. So he's a great dancer. Four of the Newsies went on to go to do a show called Roundhouse. This included Dominic Lucera that I just mentioned. And on this show, Roundhouse, their singing and dancing and acting were all featured. So take that as you will. Kevin Stay, one of the dancers, became a choreography in his dance with Janet Jackson in one of her music videos. Christian Bale may not have the powerhouse of Santa Fe, but he's the only one that can deliver that somber of a song and still make it memorable. Also, I think we all saw Dark Knight, right? David Moscow, he portrayed David in a guy who grew in confidence instead of a guy who wasn't just a hothead, which the musical suffers from the actors doing one thing all the time. You never see the characters really grow. And you have Gabriel Damon. You can like Tommy Bracco all you want, but Gabriel Damon is the reason Spot Conlon is scary. Aaron Moore went on to be in the filmed version of Rent. He also is married to Idina Menzel. Robert Duvall and Bill Pullman. Do I need to say anything else? Most of the Newsies now have careers in dance and choreography. They're dance teachers or they're singers. So say what you will about the talent in the movie, but their resumes speak for themselves. You cannot deny their talent just because they're not as perfectly polished as you want, because Kenny didn't want polished dancers and singers in the movie. He wanted boys that looked like they came off the streets. Yeah, so don't hate on their talent just because they're not perfectly trained Broadway actors. And even then, don't hate on their talent because who knows, they may actually be on Broadway like Max Casella. Sorry guys, I'm heated. Do some research on the 1992 movie before you start like hating on everything that happened in it. Do some research. You may surprise yourself. All right, now we're going on to Katherine Pulitzer. And I'm gonna come out and say it. She's a horrible character. You can come at me now if you want, but the thing is, listen to my reasons, because I promise you my reasons for not liking her are grounded in fact. They're not just my subjective opinion. So I want to say that yes, Katherine Pulitzer does exist historically. She was a daughter of Pulitzer, the newspaper dude. Forgot his first name. Joseph? Is it Joseph? Yeah, William Hearst Joseph Pulitzer. She was his daughter. She died before the strike happened. So she doesn't exist at the time of this musical. So adding her in was literally to give Jack a love interest, which he already had. Speaking of, she replaced Sarah. No one really liked Sarah, which I don't agree with. She's a stronger female character than Katherine is, in my opinion. But one of the reasons I don't like Katherine is she suffers from something that I've noticed in a lot of musicals, and that is she's a hot-headed, get her way, get her done, privileged girl who bullies her way into life and makes it about her. And a lot of female characters in theater do this, and I don't like any of them, including Katherine, and I will explain what I mean by all that in a bit. But she's the Broadway cliche of a love interest that bullies her way in and is actually really rude, and I don't like that, especially when she replaced a soft, nice character, Sarah. She demeans Jack, and the scene that made me really, really dislike her, especially as Jack's love interest, is when she says that Jack's dream of going to Santa Fe is stupid because everybody who goes comes back. Who does that? Who just craps all over someone's dream, someone's lifelong dream? And let me remind you, Jack is poor, Katherine is rich. They have a class divide, so not only is he being demeaned by a person that he's supposed to like, but he's being demeaned by someone who is upper class, something that he has been dealing with this entire musical, and yet he still puts up with her. I don't get it. I'm gonna say this. Sarah also doesn't approve of Jack going to Santa Fe. However, her response doesn't demean Jack's dream of going to Santa Fe. In the movie, the scene is Sarah and Jack are on the rooftop, and Jack says, like, is there any, like, should I go or whatever? And he says something along the, even the sun's different there. And she's like, the sun is the same as here, silly. Meaning, like, the way she says it is very soft, and it tells Jack that she'll be sad if he goes, but she's not outright saying his dream is stupid. She's saying, it's the same here. You'll find something here. It's a very different approach to the same problem, and it makes Sarah that much more likable in comparison to Katherine, because Sarah doesn't outright tell Jack that he's stupid. With her inclusion into the story, the Newsies strike no longer becomes about the Newsies story. It becomes Katherine's story. And I'm gonna explain this, and it becomes her story through her song. Yeah, that song I mentioned that I don't like, that's when the whole plot shifts to not be about Newsies, but be about Katherine's coverage of the Newsies and how that affects her. Bet you didn't catch that. I want to say that, like, I don't like that. The story at its core is about the Newsies. It's not about Katherine. And in a second, I'm gonna compare her to the character that she replaces and explain why his character is better than hers and how he doesn't make the story about him like she does. I also want to say, she lies to the Newsies the entire time, and no, they don't find out that she lies. Only David and Jack find out that she lies. And guess what? Nothing changes for her because she's rich and she's the daughter of Joseph Pulitzer. She has no stakes. So she can lie and get away with it, and it's fine, and people still like her. Why? She's lying. Her inclusion as a writer for the newspapers and doing it under a pen name ultimately means nothing because she's rich, white, upper class, and the daughter of Joseph Pulitzer. She's gonna get a job again. She's gonna get a job somewhere because she's Joseph Pulitzer's daughter, whether she has a pen name or not. Yes, she wants it for herself, but ultimately, because whether or not she writes about the Newsies under a pen name or not, it's not going to change anything for her. Yet she acts like it does, but it's not, because she's still rich. She doesn't lose anything in losing this story and losing this battle. Nothing changes for her. So I want to contrast that to the character she replaced, Brian Denton. I want to say that, first of all, Brian Denton was actually demoted during the movie because he was an ace war correspondent, but when there's no war, he doesn't get to report on the stuff that people want to read on, so he has to find something, so he's demoted, which is automatically putting him at a position that's completely different from Katherine. He had something and he lost it, so he has not only his job to lose, but he has everything left from his job to lose for reporting on the Newsies. He can lose his job and not get rehired because he doesn't have the safety cushion of being Joseph Pulitzer's daughter and rich and wealthy. He doesn't have that safety cushion. He loses everything if he loses his job. Even though he could lose his job, he still supports the Newsies from a distance. He pays for their bail when he does not have to, because after the rally, they're all supposed to go to jail, and he's the reason they don't. Katherine doesn't do anything like that. She could, but she doesn't. Denton helping them, actually, he has stakes in the matter. He cares about these boys in a way that Katherine doesn't. And the thing is, one of the reasons why he cares more than Katherine does, and this is going to be my honest opinion, he never lies to them. he comes out straight and tells them why he's not reporting on them anymore. Katherine never does that. The boys have trust in Denton. Even though he said he couldn't report on them anymore, they still trust in him enough. So Katherine's inclusion also like does weird things for the plot. So in the movie, Denton knows how to work a patent press, which is the type of press they use to like make their own newspaper. Denton knows how to do that. Katherine doesn't. She's the daughter of a newspaper dude and doesn't know how to do it. She has to bring in her two friends, which are like two completely useless characters, to be able to work a press. I can't. Guys, like, you added 3 extra characters in for what one character can do in a reasonable sense. Guys, I can't. Also, the whole Teddy Roosevelt plot seems so like contrived in the musical, because why does Teddy Roosevelt care? Yeah, he saw the story, but like, why does he care? Here's the thing, with Denton, he has a reason to care because he knows Denton, because Denton was the war correspondent for him. He charged up the hill with Teddy Roosevelt, and I think it's Teddy Roosevelt, with Roosevelt. Roosevelt trusts Denton's opinion, so his inclusion in the final scene isn't out of left field because there's already a relationship built there. In the musical, it's just like, oh, he's here now. We have this ace in our pocket for no reason. Like, guys, why do you hate the movie so much when it's written in a way to make sense and make it reasonable instead of just having plot conveniences? Like, all the stuff I'm pointing out is stuff you would hate about anything else, but you love it about this musical, and I don't understand it. Sorry, I'm getting like so into it because guys, I want this musical to actually be good, and it's not. And I hate saying that because it's not about the talent. The talent isn't what makes it good or bad. It's the horrible storytelling and the horrible characters that didn't need to be there in the first place because they were okay, moving on. She doesn't add anything in the final scene except to like break Jack down one more time by being a betrayal because she never tells anybody that she's Pulitzer's daughter. In that office scene in the movie, it is so much more powerful. And you didn't need Jack to be broken down one more time. You had him winning over Pulitzer without the assistance from Katherine. It just makes that final office scene seem really clunky, and it doesn't really do anything. Yes, the musical ends with the actual true ending of the strike, which is like you can sell the papers back, but just because it gives you the true ending of the strike doesn't make it any better than the movie. Katherine is just so cliched. And like I said, she makes the story about her because all the final moments of the musical revolve around her, not the Newsies. They revolve around what she has done, not what the Newsies are doing. And when you change the core of who the story is about, you change the story. And that is my biggest problem with the musical. The story no longer was about the Newsies. It was about Katherine's effect on the Newsies, which I don't like. It ruins the story for me. So yeah. She's a poor inclusion, just a poor friend to the boys. So yeah, I could say so much more. As you can see, I get very into this topic because I feel so strongly about it and I have so many opinions, but I'm not going to share them because then this video would be like 80 hours long, and we all know what too long videos do. If you remember the Cats saga and me trying to film that video, you know. I'm going to refrain and I'm going to stop it here. I know I've made the theater cult mad, and I'm okay with that, but at the same time, like, if you're gonna come at me in the comments, please, like, come at me with actual facts and reasons. Don't just be like, you're wrong. Don't, like, come at me with hate, okay? Like, be kind. Otherwise, you're not gonna get a response from me, because I do try to respond to comments. Be kind to me in the comments when you're telling me I'm wrong. I'm gonna disagree with you because I don't think I'm wrong here. But yeah, so that's all I have to say. 1992 is better than the Broadway version. That's all I got. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, week, month, year, whenever you're watching this. If you like what you saw, if you want to see more of this, you can subscribe and you can like the video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints about what I said, you can leave them in the comments below. And I will see y'all later. Bye!